every day in the morning, about 10 o'clock, you'll hear the loud speaker playing the music, and you'll see all these students been lining in a certain format, doing
morning exercises.
Morning exercises, or in between lessons exercises anyway. And that's a daily practice. And it's not only in that school, it's basically the whole country. All these schools in the whole country will have that every morning, maybe twice a day. One in the morning, once in the afternoon.
So they still have that?
Yes, starting from my years, actually. And remember, I guess you would also remember that. And we have different sets. We have different versions.
Right.
You know, it's
广播体操
keeping
1、2、3 or different
exactly.
things.
So we have different versions during all these years.
Like the 5th set, the 6th set. I think now it's up to 7 or 8 or something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I even saw a video on YouTube or one of those things where they did the whole routine using only fingers, and they could actually do the entire thing, and all the Chinese who knew it would see it and say, yes, that's exactly what we did.
Right, I didn't realize
fun.
that.
I'll have to look for it.
That was a very, it's like a very important part of our school life, you know.
It's amazing. They all have that in part of their culture.
You did it?
No.
Back in the States, you didn't have
that. But we have what we call recess.
Yeah.
And usually, and especially, at least in elementary school, after lunch, you get a period of time, maybe half an hour, or I don't know how long, maybe at least half an hour, where kids can just run around on the playground.
But that's like the break time, so you can do whatever you want.
Well, but I think you have to go onto the playground. I don't think you can just sit.
That's true. But we don't really have anything quite like that.
It's not organized, no.
Even in the morning, I mean, we have exercise maybe, but not any organized
Something
things.
like the eye exercises.
You know, we don't have that either.
In the
That's
whole
right.
country. You know, we have the whole set of eye exercises. Recently, there is a news story about what's happening in one of the primary schools in Chongqing municipality in southwest China.
Near Sichuan.
Near Sichuan. Neighboring Sichuan, actually. Instead of using the the national unified set of exercises, they chose their own. Let's take a look at the video.
Okay.
I would like to applaud.
Wow!
So what do you think, Charlotte?
So it's Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson's dangerous.
Well, you know, how great is that? You know, I have to say, I love the whole concept of morning exercises and everyone getting out and doing some physical movement or physical exercise. I think it's great. I do remember when I was in primary school in Nanjing, you know, sometimes you get out there and you just don't feel like doing the same old, you know, set of exercises that, you know, it's just very kind of boring in a way after a while. And I can see how something like this could be a lot of fun for kids because it's not so much, you know, jumping jacks or lifting your arms, but it's dancing, and there's some beat and rhythm and it's fun.
David?
Well, that's, I was thinking, you know, that the traditional Chinese exercises, because I used to see them doing on campuses, the college would do it all the time too. I had to wake up at 8 in the morning or whenever it was to hear this. But it was usually, as you were saying, sort of actions, bodily actions that are kind of neutral that everybody can do. That are that just involve sort of moving your hand this way or that. But Michael Jackson, I mean, some of those moves, I'm not sure that anybody, but I mean, I couldn't do them. I mean, kids, they're able to dance like that, and they're able to move their body in these ways.
You know what?
And it must be much better exercise, actually, than these stage old things.
Well, it's kind of controversial because this is being causing hot debates on the internet, actually, on all these newspapers, and whether this would be a good idea to have dangerous, or whether this is really the suitable, you know, head for morning exercises.
You mean just the music, or is the dancing supposed to be kind of too suggestive or sexy or something like that?
Well, I mean, maybe not, you know, anything to do with being sexy or not, but it's just something, the choice of the headmaster, you know, he's also in his 30s and he thinks
a Michael Jackson fan.
Probably.
He might be, a fan of Michael Jackson's, and he thinks it's must be cool to have dangerous instead of the traditional, the routine music to accompany the morning exercises. Just in comparison, let's just take a listen to the traditional, the routine kind of morning exercises music.
Comparison.
Okay. All right, take a listen. Well, it's safe, and I must say it's safe, but maybe not as exciting as dangerous. But the thing is, one argument is because you don't just have that, although we say routine or traditional exercise music or exercise format from nowhere, as the result of the research of lots of people. And they design it for the specific purpose of keeping healthy for all these primary school students.
It's supposed to uniformly exercise the different parts of your body in a way. And Michael Jackson, that wasn't the purpose of the video, Dangerous.
Exactly.
No.
And for some part of that, dangerous might be, enjoyable to listen to. But exactly. But, for some part, you might have noticed people just stand still, not doing much. But, the whole purpose of that is doing exercise, to move.
Right. Well, but still, dancing is exercise. It's, to do something like that, it's exhausting. It can be exhausting.
I haven't seen the whole routine, but for all we know, maybe it did get exercised a lot.
A little more.
It might be
for the routine part, it's we move.
Yeah.
We're moving always. I mean, no matter which version it is, but it's you're moving basically the whole body. You need to jump actually at the end.
But same with just dancing, like with Dangerous, like what you were saying. Maybe for all we know, somewhere in their repertoire there, they get a little more active and get jiggy with it.
And they also do.
Jiggy is a technical dance term. Charlotte knows, and you don't know it.
All right.
It's an English word. You're not going to know that. Don't look at it.
But I do know moonwalk, spacewalk. They also do that.
Now, see, that's an example of a hard one. I don't think you're going to get a lot of Chinese old ladies doing the moonwalk.
Actually, there are quite a few.
Really?
Yes. Groups of older women, retired women that have, do kind of street dancing.
This is the newest version, Dangerous. Whether or not they're still using that, I don't know, because it's been debated very hotly on the internet, it's been hotly debated. But before that, they used to use Nobody. Have you heard about that song from South Korea?
Nobody.
Take a look at the video.
Is it the one that, I want nobody but you.
That's it.
I want nobody. I heard
It's
that.
actually a song from a South Korean girls group.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was South Korean.
It was extremely popular on the internet. Lots of people try to imitate that. I don't know. I mean, it's been copied by these students.
We're out. We're out.
Totally.
Take a look at the original version. You'll get an idea. And 700 students on the playground doing this. Should be fun to watch, though.
But usually those things are boring, and the students are like, "Oh, here we go again." Is their attitude different with this new thing? Are they still just bored? Like, oh, this is so boring. I don't want to do it.
I would have to think that the students.
It must be more fun, right?
It must be more fun.
Yeah.
It must be.
I don't know. It seems they have always have the new hits to replace the old ones. Once the students get bored with it, they find a new one.
Well, and that's good because that's bringing in new things for the students to do. It's not just the same thing day after day, you know?
Remember, the headmaster is only in his 30s, so he's got all these, novel ideas in his mind. So it's no wonder that
This is part of the kid culture. My daughter, her school is always doing these Korean dances and stuff like that. It's really hot now,
And it's all about catching the attention of these young students in the school.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And now let's take a break. And when we come back, and here is another story, a relative older story, but again, that's also has something to do with the exercises. Do you too?
You said this is causing a controversy?
Yep. You don't see the point, controversial part.
It looks like they're doing different things, right?
I have a guess.
Okay.
There's holding hands involved. It's
Boys and girls.
Boys and girls, yeah, that's probably causing
And this is
a bit of a controversy.
in Beijing, because the Beijing municipal government, they've introduced, or the education authority in Beijing, they've introduced this new practice of morning exercises, and basically it's like, the school version of ballroom dance. And boys and girls pairing together either in two or in maybe in four, as you could see just now in the video.
Huh. So even though it's not in any sort of like, well, I guess there were some modern songs there, but the first one was 你是我的好朋友. That's sort of old-fashioned.
It's like You're My Friend.
Yeah, but
it's a friend song.
Young students.
But they were touching, I didn't even notice, but the boys and girls were holding hands, right?
Which I think traditionally, if you look at Chinese culture traditionally, it's kind of a touchy subject maybe for children or even young, teenagers. For having physical contact. Is a bit of a taboo, you could say.
What was it like in Nanjing when you were little?
It was very traditional.
So no touching at all?
No touching,
Not
no
even for
boyfriends
you.
and girlfriends.
You're an American girl, in a way.
No.
But it's not like that back in the States. I mean, in schools, like in primary school.
I don't remember ever any pressure. I mean, in fact...
It's too early for you.
in fact, for the problem with when I was a kid was that the teachers would want us to do something like that, like a square dance or something, and the boys wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, usually it was, I'm not going to touch any girls, and I'll get cooties.
Well, yeah,
girl
but
cooties.
That might have been in elementary school, but by middle school, high school, your hormones are changing. You might be a little more interested in holding hands with someone. But, I mean, for something like this... Kids hold hands. Kids hold hands now.
So it's just normal.
It's not if you go on the subway.
Interesting. I mean, we've got some voices from the students, either stakeholders.
Yeah.
But from the students or the parents or from the observers in the society, and basically they have different ideas. And some say, well, this is a very good idea to have that group dance or the school version of ballroom dance, and we laugh and we talk to each other and we kind of enjoy a very good time. But at the same time, there is another argument saying, well, I mean, it's kind of weird to hold hands or to do exercises in this way. I prefer the traditional routine exercise.
I can see that.
And here is another argument. Actually, this is from a boy student, and he said, well, basically, it's rare for them to hold hands with girls, and if you're doing things like waltz, and I might flush, I might, have quicker heartbeats, but kind of I feel good.
I mean, it looked very innocent. The dance looked very innocent dancing. I mean, we're not talking about, club dancing or anything.
I suddenly am, but something... This has been a lot of years, but memories are flooding back to me. And no, it's true. I can remember when I was in like 5th, 6th grade, and when we would occasionally do something, and holding hands with one of the girls in the class was really
major.
A little bit scary, but also kind of electric. Like, oh my gosh, I'm holding her hand, and it was like. I remember now that was actually, it was a big deal back then. So maybe I'm beginning to think maybe there's a point to this.
I would understand it as the concern mainly from the parents, because they do worry about the issue of, as we put it in Chinese, early romance or early love. When you're not supposed to be in love with someone else. I mean, the romance thing.
That's true, but something that I have to say is we're in society now, you're inundated with television, internet, all kinds of influences, pop stars and their music videos, that are way more suggestive than what these kids would be doing at school.
And anyway, we do see on the streets young students holding hands with each other anywhere, like lovers.
Absolutely.
And well, at the same time wearing the school uniform.
Yeah, that's right.
So you could clearly see these are the kids from the schools, but they're acting like they're they've been in love for a long time. It's still being practiced actually in some schools in Beijing,
and
I'm not quite sure whether it's still the same in other countries. But at least you see the the evolving process instead of the whole country using the same set of exercise pattern. And these days we see different forms of exercises.
They're mixing it up a bit.
Exactly, in different countries.
That's good.
So at least we see the requirement of that from the society, from the parents, from the students, and at the same time we're also seeing what's happening in these schools.
Yeah.
Actually, that may be the bigger news than just specifically what they're
actually doing.
Is that this big collective thing that that China, there used to be, every Chinese did certain things and they all ate certain foods. Now it's like you say, evolving into something where it's becoming individual.
Diversity.
It's a little more diversified.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's take another break, and when we come back, here is another story which is indeed causing a lot of attention, and this time it's not about exercises.
Okay.
We'll be right back. You're watching Crossover. Welcome back to Crossover. Now, before the break, we had two little episodes about exercises. How do we do exercises? As we say, we've been seeing actually this diversity being witnessed in these schools in the whole country. Yeah. Different places might introduce different forms of exercises. But this next story is still about a young student. It's about a young student called Huang Yibo. He's only 13 years old. But what, is catching the attention of the whole country, virtually the whole country, all these newspapers, is basically he's only 13 years old. But he's wearing, the little badge of 5 stripes.
5 stripes.
5 stripes. That means something. And you explain that. And later. And starting from 2 years old or 3 years old, and he started to watch the main news, the primetime news, 7 o'clock. It's every night. But that's like, the window for all these official news because of what the major happenings of the country. And later on, when he's still very young, maybe 5, 6 years old, he started to read People's Daily reference news.
It's called 参考消息, reference news.
And 人民日报, People's Daily news. And he's also now a member of, say, the municipal authority of the Young Pioneers.
It's like the Chinese equivalent of the Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
So that's why he's wearing the
5 stripes.
5 stripes.
I was going to say, I don't even know that I've ever seen someone with 5 stripes. Usually a school will have 1 stripes, 2 stripes, and 3 stripes. And if you're 3 stripes, you're a school leader. Either the, whatever, but you're a school leader. If it's 2 stripes, it's a class leader, that kind of thing. But 5 stripes. Yeah,
and what is been causing attention, the debate, say, about this young student is basically he's still young, 13 years old, but it seems, he's acting like an adult. He's seen by many as a role model, as a model student, because, he's been very active in been involved in all these charity events, and he's been very active in helping his fellow students, in saving food, say, helping others, but at the same time, and also he published lots of articles himself on these public newspapers, and he's got a blog. But what's causing controversy is actually he's only 13 years old, but somehow he's acting like he's an adult.
We have this phenomenon of child prodigies that are extraordinarily good at something or other.
Justin Bieber.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, speaking of hair, but anyway.
Right.
But usually it involves something that's a skill that involves something to do with mental skills like math or music.
Yeah.
Or even you have people who are extremely good dancing or even actors or something like that. But to take on this adult role is a different kind of child prodigy, someone who's very good at acting like an adult. That's weird.
Also kind of like a young leader or almost official. Like a young politician, a young official is...
Charlotte, when you were in junior high and high school, don't you remember that there were like kids who were just, you could tell already, they were just going to go into politics.
Yeah.
The way they dressed, the way they would always shake people's hands.
Yeah.
And we even had elections for like school.
Are they born politicians?
School presidents?
Yes,
in a way, maybe.
Yes. I mean, we had school president, class president,
Yes.
and they would run. They would usually win, and they would run it just like they were just already
campaign kind of thing. Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else too. I've met a few, not very many, but I've met a few in my life. These extremely rich, investment counselors, people who manage other people's money, and they get a huge amount of money. They hang around millionaires and they manage people's money. And I met a few of these people, and one thing they had in common was that they all started in junior high and high school, and many of them had made, their first $100,000 or something when they were in high school.
Yeah, that is why some would argue, well, don't blame the child. I mean, he's not the one to blame, and if he's the one to pursue a life like that, let him be.
Well, blame. What's wrong with it?
Because this is kind of they're accusing the child and also his parents for being too, say, practical. Because it seems you're going that direction. You're putting that 5 stripes no one else has done, something like that.
Well, it sounds to me like maybe now it's sort of gotten bigger than life almost. You said he has a blog. He's received a lot of media attention. So maybe now you can't necessarily say whether or not he's doing it because he really wants to be or because, of the attention it brings him or his family, for that matter. I mean, you just don't know.
Do you think the issue is that people think that kids should behave like kids, that they're losing their childhood, or you think that's the reason?
Maybe.
They find it weird?
Although in China, most kids don't really have a childhood in that regard because they're studying so hard.
Yeah, the college entrance exams.
I mean, really,
the Gaokao rob you of your childhood.
It's from when you start school to when you go to college. You're it's
Working
one big long
constantly.
study session.
I knew kids like that when I was in high school who, I didn't usually, they seemed to be weird. People didn't hang out with them because they were off in another world, but they were already reading foreign policy magazines and stuff. And they were usually in debate class.
Yeah.
And I hear about famous public intellectuals like Noam Chomsky, who when they were 13 or 14 were publishing papers. So these kids exist.
I guess one of the concerns, what is really concerning of the public and why we say this is a controversial issue. The case with only this one boy, and he's catching the attention of the whole society. And I guess the worry is whether it's out of his own choice or this is being pushed by the parents, by the school, by people around him.
Right.
And the worry might also be with whether more children will be taking that path instead of focusing on what they are supposed to do as a kid, as a student in the school. And
which is a danger with anything, really. I mean, just then we mentioned Justin Bieber, how many kids are trying to be like Justin Bieber.
Right.
And that's because he's in the public eye and he's trotted out to be role model, this, that, or the other thing. Just like this kid, maybe he naturally has these tendencies and some parents or even some children might look at him and think, oh, I want to be like that, or my child should be like that. And that's I think that's unavoidable, really.
But how would you feel if you had a kid and at age 13 he started at the dinner table saying, and welcome back to Crossover. I mean, would you say, hey, slow down. Well, would you encourage him or would you discourage him?
Yeah, but if my kid would do something like that, hosting Crossover, yes, do it.
Let me retire.
Yeah, exactly. Or produce your own show anyway. But basically what you're saying is, if he's the one doing that, it's no different, from someone like Justin Bieber doing singing or like someone.
We get off of Justin Bieber.
At the very least, as you were saying, at least this boy is not just writing articles and stuff, but he's actually doing good things with his time, volunteer work and helping society. And that's, in some ways, if you're trying to emulate someone or encourage your child to try new things or different things, that's a good thing to do.
Lots of people don't feel comfortable with is if you take a look at his pictures, and he's only 13 years old, but when he takes pictures, he's always posing like he's a high official, like in his 50s or 40s. I mean,
a little old man.
Overly mature, overly mature, and people would expect a teenager to be acting like a teenager, to be more lively. But if I guess, and there is also another story, an old story actually. It's about a genius, in ancient China, but he's been ruined by his parents because he was taken by his parents to different occasions to just to show off how talented he is. And I guess the society, the media is also worried about the same case would happen. Tragedy like that happened to the family. That's the only way out, that going out to the streets and begging for help?
Well, you can imagine, China's a very big country, a lot of people, and also a lot of very poor people still in China. People don't see that when you live in the big glitzy cities. Actually, the divide between rich and poor can get wider and wider sometimes. And people from the very rural areas are incredibly poor, and when your child does get cancer, there's very little option for you. So to do such a desperate act isn't really surprising because there's so much desperation out there.
But actually, I checked on the website. We do have some charity organizations like China Charity, like the Fuping Foundation, like the Red Cross, China Charity. All these places, they have the websites, and also logging on to one of the websites. It seems they have the mother and infant project or foundation helping all these mother and newborns. I don't know whether that project will cover the case of this mother and her daughter. And even if it covers that, how do they apply for help? I guess that is the problem. We don't know how it's been undertaken in China. We do see all these organizations working, and we do see sometimes people get help from them, but if we come down to this specific case, obviously, I mean, the organizations might be there. People who need help are there. There is this information gap. There should be I guess, the information obviously didn't reach to that mother.
Yeah.
I would say also, actually, in the cases of, there are a lot of NGOs here, a lot of organizations, like you say, like the Red Cross, that do a lot of good work here. But I still don't think that they have enough resources to be able to help every mother whose child has cancer. I mean, the operation cost behind treating cancer can amount to 100,000, 200,000 RMB.
Yeah.
And I know foreigners and Chinese who run charities around Beijing that we support actually with my business, and they're inundated with children who are coming from the rural areas, who are born prematurely or have cancer or problems, and they can't, they can't keep them all because they just don't have enough resources. And that's, quite often the case, and not only in China, but in many countries around the world. You do have a lot of NGOs, but they simply don't have enough resources to keep up with it all. And especially when you're talking about 1.3 billion people, there's going to be a lot of this, in terms of percentages. So I'm sure it would be hard for her to get online and find the Red Cross, but also I'm sure the Red Cross don't necessarily have all the resources to deal with every case.
That's true. There is another issue actually coming out from that story. It seems people tend not to believe a story like that even when it's told on the internet, or even when you see someone posting their own stories on a piece of paper, or even just on the ground, when you're passing by people who are on their knees begging for help, you tend not to believe them. Have you seen people like that in the cities?
There's so many beggars. They think beggars just walk. So sometimes people are really hard to believe, and maybe it's not truth. But just like you say, if you want help, just help. If you don't want help, just walk away. And about department, some charity department. I think in China, there are so many charity departments, but not enough, I think. So many people in China. I have been some orphanage, but it's not published orphanage. It's just a person. He's a can't hurt person, but he always needed money. So I think just people should learn to how to love each other. Not just the charity charity department. Everyone should do that.
Well, actually, and the thing is with philanthropy in China or charity, is the Chinese look at it very differently to foreigners. You know, you have people like Bill Gates who's like, I'm going to give half of my fortune. Or encourage billionaires all around the world to leave half of their fortunes to charity. I remember this great quote from a Chinese billionaire who refused to sign up, and his reason was, he goes, I'm using this money to create jobs in China that take people out of poverty. I don't want to give half of my money to charity. I want to actually create jobs and work and wealth.
Yeah.
And that was his, you know, his twist on it, which is a very Chinese way of looking at it, I think. And actually, you know, it's countries that have developed at different times, so you can understand that. But going back to what you're saying about being skeptical, there's a lot of that, because, you know, I recently saw on a mini blog of a beggar in Shanghai who's lying on the ground begging, and then someone knocks over his pot of money, and then you know, you've got pictures of the guy, he stands up, he's cleaning up all his money, puts it in a pot, and walks away. You know, it's there's a lot of that going on too, so people have a lot of distrust for this. But what's, I think, captured me in this is this you know, very riveting story of a businessman who's called the rich businessman, making a woman crawl on her knees to give money. I mean, that's...
Well, the guy has been nicknamed as the rich guy in Guangzhou, but it's, you know, the internet names.
That's the internet name.
They don't really represent anything.
Maybe not.
So, I mean, this is a fantastic story. I mean, it's going to make everybody turn their heads.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm quite skeptical about this. I'm wondering...
But the thing is, I mean, when you have a story like that, when you see someone in need of help, and that you don't really give them any attention, and at the same time you are also seeing so many people who pretend to be in need of help, but actually these are the ones who are exploiting the kind heart, taking advantage of all that. Who to believe, and that is indeed an issue, actually. Sometimes we may not need to question that much, but in this case, this is indeed it's a issue of life and death. And if you trust her story, then she'll receive all these donations she needs for the treatment of her daughter. But if you don't, she's going to be in big trouble.
There was a case recently in the foreign community in Beijing where this lady came to Beijing with a child who had a very serious disease. It wasn't cancer. And it was all in the emails and the blogs of all the foreigners in Beijing. She needed 100,000 RMB to treat her child. And one foreigner found her a hospital that was run by foreigners who said that they would treat her child, and she refused the treatment. She said she needed the 100,000 RMB to treat the child. So everybody suddenly became very skeptical. They were like, well, listen, this hospital is off to take you in, but you won't take it. You're insisting on the 100,000 RMB. And suddenly the whole story took a twist, and nobody knew who to believe. So, you know, it's terrible when these things happen.
That's right.
And you've got to be very careful about what to think.
Yeah, I mean, and these days, internet and all the micro blogs, they've become a very hot platform for all these kind of information. Sometimes you really are in no position to judge whether it's a true story or not.
But maybe for women, it's really different to men, you know, to men, and you are maybe so reasonable. Everything you want got a reason, but sometimes for me, just I feel it's I can't believe, I can't trust him. Okay, it's a liar, but sometimes still I think you should help other people. Just maybe sometime when you want help this one, but you have to believe. Maybe take your time. Maybe you have, when you have time, just try to know this thing well, and then to decide if you help them or not. I think help other people. Yeah, maybe spend money, spend time, but I believe you will get it back. Because that when you need help, many people will help you.
As you said, the story didn't stop there. The story went on. Actually, we're going to tell you some more development of this story right after a short break. You're watching Crossover. We'll be right back.